Join Hans and Scotty G Friday from noon to 3 at RGS Exteriors at 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. DJ PK, cheating PK. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And right now there are allegations, apparently backed up by some legal documents, that the Clippers could have been cheating with Kawhi Leonard. A $28 million payment for a no-show job. Pablo Torre finds out. Pablo Torre on a podcast.
Is that Joe's son?
I do not believe he's Joe's son, no. The story here says that, quoting liberally from legal documents, there were a couple clauses that in the contract he got a hold of. Essentially, Leonard could decline to proceed with any action desired by the company. And there's another clause in there that he would only be paid if he remained a member of the Clippers. And it was a tree planting company that's gone out of business.
They ran out of trees? Or they planted them all?
I don't believe they planted all the trees.
That stops pollution, doesn't it?
It could help you, I guess.
Well, you're into that
science.
stuff.
You're getting into science I don't know about.
That's one of your causes, isn't it? Plant a tree?
I've not made planting a tree a cause. I'll work on that.
I'm more about cactus.
Oh, yeah? Does that clean the air? Absorb carbon?
No. It pricks you, though, when you touch it.
Yeah, if you touch it, it hurts. Ow.
Got to be careful on that one. Well,
you like all cactus or just the saguaro?
Saguaro.
Yeah. Your allegiance is very narrow in the cacti world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't dislike the other ones. But saguaros in the winter, in the valley, oh, beautiful. And then if you go out a little bit, where there's dozens and dozens, I actually think that is very beautiful.
On the freeway driving in from California, I've seen them a couple of times making that drive.
Yeah, so you got that going on there. But, I mean, investigate it. They got them rules, and you can't be breaking them. This seems like if true, a flagrant violation. But how much freaking money does Leonard need?
I don't know.
My gosh. And he's not that good of a player. And he's hurt most of the time.
He's hurt most of the time. At his peak, he's helped two teams win championships, so people are banking on that. One with the Spurs and one with the Raptors.
We're getting away from that.
We are getting away from that. That's 6 years since the last one, I think. And to your point, not 6 82-game seasons, not 6 72-game seasons. And he misses a lot of games.
Yeah, he's a part-time player, and you just have to hold your breath that he's healthy in the postseason.
He signed a 3-year, $104 million deal, re-upped with the team for 4 years and $176 million, then signed another 3-year extension. So,
man, they just keep piling on the cash.
Yeah.
And he needed 28 more to do what?
I don't know. That's over $400 million worth of money from the Clippers there. So.
Oh, my gosh.
Even when you lose half of it to taxes, that's still over $200 million worth of money. What were you going to do?
Right. Man, he's not that good.
So this apparently isn't the first time something like this has happened. Or at least there have been allegations of this happening before. There's a guy named, the hilarious nickname of Uncle Dennis Robertson. He's Leonard's advisor, and he was investigated by the NBA in 2019 for asking for impermissible benefits. The NBA completed that investigation, reading from the Yahoo story here, into those charges and found no evidence the Clippers granted illegal benefits to Leonard while pursuing him in free agency. But they do point out that Adam Silver considers the issue a cardinal sin of the NBA. That's a quote from Silver. And that the league would reopen its investigation into the situation if more evidence came into light. This would seem to qualify as more evidence. I would think they would want to get their hands on whatever legal documents Pablo Torre was able to get his hands on that he was reading from in his podcast.
Adam was at the Yankee game the other day.
Oh, yeah.
They showed him.
Yeah. Those clauses, you can refuse to do anything, and another clause that says you don't get paid if you lead the Clippers. Those seem to be two pretty big red flags.
I don't understand why you would do that. What is the point of doing that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
At the point they did that, did they think they were going to lose Kawhi Leonard and he was the difference between winning and losing?
Well, where was he going to go?
All in on him. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You'd have to know what year this started. I mean, he was there in 2019, but there have been 2 other contracts, or at least contract extensions.
And what's really bizarre is cardinal sin is a term associated with Christianity, and Adam Silver's Jewish.
Aha! Well, it's one of those phrases that's in the lexicon, I guess.
Is that new arena that Ballmer built?
No, that is not the lexicon.
Oh.
Although that would be a good name for an arena. I see where you're going with that. I like it. When are they back at the lexicon? Oh, they got 4 in a row starting next Tuesday at the lexicon. Yeah, that sounds good.
Right.
If you got the Sphere, you might as well have the lexicon.
100% agree.
Yeah, build it right next to it on the Strip. Yeah, absolutely.
That just doesn't seem like it. The risk reward, what you're gaining, is not worth the risk.
57 games, 52 games, 0 games, 52 games, 68, 37. Yeah, the upside doesn't seem to be there.
I mean, if he plays for a month, say he just played all of December, I mean, wow, that's noteworthy.
It is, yeah.
Because he doesn't do it. And good for him. He was a good player, borderline great player, and helped teams win titles. And you can argue he's the best player. That's great. But I just don't see that. Man, that's somebody that I'm just going to cheat on. I've got to do this. This is worth it. If they did it. If it turns out that it's true, it just seems like that seems so stupid. Because the penalties, the draft choices, if they take them away, those are, of all the sports, and they're all important, I think basketball is the most important. I mean, it's the one sport where teams literally lose as much as possible. And I realize it's been done in baseball, but you have to have all things come together. And the Astros did it, and I think it was in Sports Illustrated, predicted several years earlier that they were going to go do that and that they would win the 2016, was it, or whatever, 2018, and they did. But there's so much that goes into it, and even if you hit on every one of your draft picks in baseball, which no one does, but if you did, you still have to supplement your roster through other ways. In basketball, you can almost build exclusively for the draft and get yourself in a great position that you can add a Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday on his own is not going to win you anything, but when you add Drew Holiday to the mix,
he can be the missing piece of the puzzle because he's a good piece, and we've got 2 test cases where it worked. Right. Milwaukee added him and they won one. Boston added him and they won one.
Right.
But he didn't come close to winning anything when he was in New Orleans.
No. And the penalty of losing draft choices, at least to me, seems like it would be most severe in basketball. So that would be the one sport that I wouldn't want to do that, because if I'm losing my draft picks, that can be devastating. And it hurts no matter what sport, but when you're drafting 20 rounds and they don't even draft foreign players in the sport.
In baseball, you can really get away with it.
Yeah.
And football is a significant penalty, depending on which pick they take away. It hurts.
Right.
Basketball depends on how good or bad you are.
You can get a 6th-round pick who's better than the 2nd-round pick.
You can.
It happens all the time. And plus, in football, there's plenty of guys who don't get drafted who make your team and start. Kearney Reed.
Undrafted free agents, the old UFAs.
You can go into being competitive through other methods besides draft choices. It seems like if you want to win an NBA title, outside of LeBron, you have to score on your high draft picks or get lucky and have a Giannis later, have a Jokic later.
Right.
But they're all the crux of these teams.
But the Warriors titles, 4 of them have been built on that.
Yeah.
And you're right about Denver, Milwaukee, and Boston was absolutely built on that.
And even OKC, I realized their best player was acquired via trade, but the other guys were all draft choices. And then Dort's an undrafted guy. So away you go there. It just seems like that's not anything I want to get involved in. And plus paying that, I realize for Ballmer, $28 million, it's just all play money, so what's the difference? But it doesn't seem to be worth it to me. I don't know why you would do that. And it's not like he is a player that you can count on to be there when you need him the most. He may not literally even be in uniform when you need him the most.
That has been a story with him for almost a decade. It started in San Antonio, and it's followed him to 3 clubs now.
Right. That's why the Jazz losing to the Clippers that time was the worst playoff loss they've ever had.
It certainly goes back to 2017. Oh, yeah, that's a great example. Right here. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes down in what, game 2, game 3?
And I thought it was 4, but whatever.
Was it 4? Okay.
I'd have to go back and look. But, yeah. I mean, they won the first 2, and they lost him at some point, and they still won. Right. They won at least 2 games without him.
That was bad. That was
right.
That was
all
the biggest gag.
All the
Jazz
cliches as far as losing. You ought to be able to win at home. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, and you drop 4 straight games. And the 4th game, it was Groundhog Day in the second half. What are they going to do? How are you going to react? How are they going to counter it? And splash, there goes another 3.
Of all the playoff losses they've had,
that one drives you the most nuts.
No question.
Right. Even beyond whatever, if you go back in the day, like Karl Malone with 3 for 16 in an elimination game or whatever, even putting those in there, that one. It wasn't just one person.
No.
There were multiple. It just kept happening.
Yes. They had the better team. Was that the year they had the best record?
Yeah.
Yeah. They had the freaking better team.
They beat the Grizzlies, who were the 8th seed. Donovan sat out 1 game.
Yeah.
Right.
That, to this day, that gets under my skin.
And it was so out of the blue. I mean, they've just won 6 playoff games in a row. They're the 1 seed.
I know.
And it's just like, if you're walking out of the arena and they're saying, I bet they don't win again. You're like, why? They've just won 6 playoff games in a row. They're the 1 seed. They look really good. All the energy was so positive, and it just went off the cliff and really never came back. I mean, they never got their mojo back from that. And then you end up with the, blowing it up with the trades and.
Right.
You can just trace it right back to that. Like, how did – and the fact is, like, everyone walked out of the arena and nobody knew it was coming. I mean, it is why we love sports, even though in that example it's why we hate sports. But it's why we love sports, because it's unscripted. You never know what's going to happen next. And that is, like, one of the most out-of-the-blue things that could have happened.
Now, I think there's a difference between what bothers me and what is painful. A lot of Jazz fans – in terms of winning and losing. I'm a Jazz fan, but I kind of cut it off at the winning and losing part, which I know most folks don't. I get that they would go to the finals. I understand that. That was very painful. I get all that.
It was different.
But somehow that didn't bother me because that Bulls team was elite.
The Bulls team was elite.
The Clipper team was not elite, and you had the best record.
And also
and you were on the come.
Yeah, and also that one thing Sloan always preached, and Stockton Malone were and then Hornacek, when they were all excellent at doing, was like, whatever happened, there's no carryover. You don't get beat once and have it turn into 2, 3, 4 losses. And it happened to them occasionally, and it did happen to them against the Bulls in the finals, because when they lost game 2 at home, they really laid an egg in game 3. But there are very few examples of that. They were very good at taking a punch, taking the hardest, toughest punch, getting knocked down, and getting up again. When they lost in 97, it was painful.
They get knocked down, they get up again.
Sing it. Chumbawamba. Let's go. 98, even in 99, they're battling for the top seed right down to the end of the season, even coming off the 2 finals losses. They never went away. But that team, that was, I don't know, that was the old glass jaw right there. Everything's going your way. And even when you lose a game, Kawhi ends up going down, so you still ought to rally and win the series. You wouldn't be the first team to win 2, lose 2, and then win in 6. I mean, pull yourself together. Happens all the time. All these champions we just listed, we can go back and find either
I've seen it before. It happens all the time. You're closing the door. You leave the world behind.
Nice.
You're digging for gold. You're throwing away.
See how many more lyrics I can trigger in this segment.
They ended up being cold as ice. That bugged me. Bugged me big time. Still bugs me. And now that I think about it, it bugs me even more.
No, it doesn't.
It does too.
You're over it.
No, I'm not.
The rebuild has begun.
Right.
Next.
But they're in the throes of losing. And you can argue, well, if that didn't happen,
then we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And we wouldn't be, are we going to get A.J. DeMonta next year? That's where we're at. Now, there's more to it than that. and they have a lot of younger players, and you get to see them develop. And I would encourage people to jump on board with that and use that as your impetus or motivation to watch, because then when it comes to pass that nobody stays out of the playoffs for 40 years. It just doesn't happen. So they will be a playoff team at some point, and you can take a little bit of, hey, I was there when I saw Ace Bailey as a gangly teenager, and now look at him. He's a 25-year-old man specimen. For old enough fans who remember Keith Van Horn as a freshman, remember Gordon Hayward as a rookie, and then go look at their bodies 3, 4, 5 years later, not even the same person. Facially they are, but everything else, they're muscular, they're physical, they're matured, and they're very good players. I think that's what we'll see with Ace Bailey. He'll be a gangly 18, 19-year-old this year, but go look and see what he'll be. I think he'll have some more definition. He may not necessarily need to put on 30 or 40 pounds. Remains to be seen. I mean, Kevin Durant never did. He's fine. Steph Curry seems to be the same skinny dude that he was. So, but you're talking about all-time players here.
But they've gotten stronger without bulking up.
Yeah, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
To be able to succeed. But that's what I'm looking for. So I have plenty of reason to watch the team this year to see what they can do. And Ace Bailey, I think, is the number one reason right now. Why am I watching the Jazz? If I'm listing the reasons, you can go because I'm a fan. It's what I do. I understand that. But I'm talking about specifically for the 24-25 season, or actually 25-26, that it is Bailey. And if he shows us anything, we're going to
hopes will rise.
He's going to be the basketball version of Devin Dampier, because people are already talking about Utah running the table, getting into the playoff, and it's based on one guy.
The defense was there last year.
Yeah.
And they're there again this year.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's based on Devin Dampier, and secondly, my guy Smitty. Smith Snowden showed us a ton the other night.
6 catches, 3 carries. For a guy who plays defense.
Super excited for him.
For a guy who plays defense, that's a lot of touches. And you look good, so it's not going away. They're going back to it.
Yeah, I would shelve him a little bit this week. But so those are my 2 reasons. And number 1 reason for the Jazz, Ace Bailey. Number 2 reason, what would be number 2 reason? Is it just a collection? Or can you go, are you looking at Hendricks because we didn't see him? Or you're looking at Flipper?
Yeah, I think it would depend on which fan you talk to. And I think you've hit on the 2 big ones right there. Hendricks is a real mystery after a year away.
Mm-hmm.
People have cooled on Cody. Now, if Cody shows progress, people can get right back on the bandwagon. But I think you say that any of the young guys who take a big step forward, they'll become number 2. Filipowski's the one who showed best recently, and I suspect that you're not allowing Kessler into this conversation. He's more of a known commodity now, going into his 4th year.
Yeah.
People know what to expect out of him.
I expect him to take
But again, if he's a player
who
makes a big jump that we don't see coming, then people will flock to him.
Great. Yeah. But I think he's established himself and doing what he does.
Everybody has questions. Can anyone answer them? That's what it comes down to. Anyone who answers them positively will become the second biggest story.
Yeah, you can go. I'd throw Keontae in there too.
Right. Collier, if he suddenly starts shooting the ball, he does so many other things well. But I think a lot of these things, people don't really expect Collier to shoot it that well.
Right,
I don't really think they expect a transformation from Keontae. Whereas with Hendricks, he just didn't play for a year. So so what is it?
Yeah,
and he's been working on his upper body. I mean, can't be running around because of his injury, but you can still be in the weight room working on your upper body.
Oh, he'd be Arnold.
Linking verbs. Got to discuss that next. Things you missed in this show. Stay with us. And we've got Troy Clardy coming up. Stanford Cardinal play-by-play broadcaster joins us next to give us a scatter report on Saturday's game in Provo. Stay with us.
It's game week for the Utes, and the KSL Sports Zone is getting you ready for kickoff. After a season-opening battle at UCLA, the Utes return home to the Hill for a battle against Cal Poly. Listen all week long for the best coverage of Utah football. Then catch college football Saturday, game day at 10 a.m. with the post-game show immediately following the game on KSLSports.com.
Let's go then. Let's go, baby.
Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is live on air, online, and on the KSL Sports app. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, The Zone. We are brought to you in part by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600. Visit the website at TrajanWealth.com. We're joined now by Troy Clardy, Stanford Cardinal, play-by-play broadcaster. Troy, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. Hope you guys are doing great. And it's going to be kind of neat to actually hop on a plane and actually only go about an hour and a half. I'd forgotten what this felt like.
With the ACC, yeah.
ACC road games and then a season opener in Hawaii. Yeah, you've been on some long plane flights. In a season of mystery at Stanford, what did you learn from game one at Hawaii with an interim coach and a constantly evolving roster?
Yeah, it's amazing. And week one, or at least week zero for Stanford, usually is about all about overreaction, right? I mean, because clearly Texas fans are clearly approaching everything with level heads and clear eyes and everything like that after that result in Columbus. Not only North Carolina fans are approaching things in measured ways after that stink bomb they laid on Monday night. As for Stanford and what happened a week and a half ago over in Hawaii, the 23-20 loss there in Honolulu, you know, it's tough to kind of go into that game exactly knowing what to expect. You know, new coach with Frank Reich here in the interim, new offensive scheme for the most part. I think there were more expectations on the defensive side of the ball with the number of returners that were coming back and with a lot more known quantities, I think, on that side of the ball. So, and I think by and large the defense did well. You know, Hawaii runs that run and shoot. You know, you expect dudes to go up there and throw for 350, 400 yards on 50, 55 passing attempts out there every single time, and that didn't happen. They didn't make any big plays through the air, but Hawaii made enough little plays through the air, and Stanford made zero little plays through the air. No passing game whatsoever. And look, Stanford historically, you know, has been known for throwing the ball. You know, obviously, the last 15 years or so, when they were known for intellectual brutality, it became physicality. But Stanford historically has put its bread and butter on throwing the football. They were not able to do that at all last week. So, you know, things need to change in that direction. Good to see actual real live production from the running backs in the running game. That was nice. So, you know, good things to build on. But, you know, you combine the lack of a passing game with 7 penalties, matching Stanford's season high from last year. There was certainly a lot to clean up during this previous bye week heading into this week against BYU.
Well, who's going to be doing the throwing? Gil Branson got the start, 15 of 30. Obviously not good enough. That pick sets up there was a real turning point at the end of the game there, and Hawaii wins it. I've been reading stuff that Reich may be open to changing. I know Elijah Brown was the hotshot recruit out of Mater Dei, but I look at the depth chart, and it lists Gil Branson. There's not an or there. Can you give us some insight?
Yeah, Gil Branson's going to be the guy until further notice. And I think it's simple as that. Now, I'm not sure, you know, how much leeway Ben is going to have this upcoming week if things don't go well, if the Stanford passing game once again is rather stagnant. And look, you know, I mean, there are a lot of different components of the passing game, right? It's not just the quarterback, even though the quarterback has to rise above everything and shine and make plays. And Ben clearly did not do that. Had one nice throw against late in the game to a fourth-string tight end, Chico Holt. Stanford's going to throw some tight ends at you. But they had a nice throw for 36 yards on what could have been Stanford's dagger drive, but eventually ended in that game-turning interception that you just mentioned. You know, it's the offensive line. They need to protect whole new left side of the offensive line, brand new center. That's part of it. And the receivers need to get separation too and fight for contested balls. And I think in a couple of key instances, I'm not sure that we necessarily saw that from the receivers. So there are all sorts of different components that go into an effective passing game. But again, it is more often than not, whether it's right or wrong, all the focus and all the credit and all the blame generally goes towards the quarterback. I'm not under the impression right now that, Gulbranson, is in serious danger of losing his job. Now that could change if things don't go right on Saturday. We'll see, but I'm not under that impression right now.
I saw 43 rushing attempts to 30 passing attempts, and I wondered, even though coaches say stuff about being 50-50 and balanced, all that, do they run the ball even more? Ford, Irvin, and Tab all had good numbers one way or another. Ford was over 100 yards. Irvin, 10 carries, 46 yards. That's pretty good production there. And Tab had 4 carries for 26. So is it just run it some more? And, Ford had 26 carries. Maybe that's the most you can do. So get the other guys some carries too and really limit the passing game and shorten the game. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, and you mentioned the number of carries, and while that certainly is an eye-popping number, you'd kind of like to see the yardage per carry maybe increase just a little more. Stanford had 2 very long marathon drives against Hawaii in the season opener. Their opening drive took the opening kickoff, 15 plays, 70 yards, took 7.5 minutes off the clock. Unfortunately, that only resulted in the field goal, and that kind of was a theme for Stanford as well, having to settle for 3s instead of getting 6s. The whole thing changes if it's 14-0 early instead of 10-0 early. And then later on in the game, Stanford had a 20-play, 85-yard drive that took over 9 minutes off the clock. So it was just constant, steady gains, mostly on the ground. And that certainly is something that is encouraging to see. Micah Ford, who has kind of been the established as the workhorse here early on, he's going to get the majority of snaps at running back. They're down Chris Davis Jr., who was injured last week and not on the trip to Hawaii. He's not even on the depth chart this week, and that also affects special teams as well, as Chris Davis was supposed to be the main kick returner and punt returner as well. So that kind of affects things in that respect too. But you still have Cedric Irvin, you still have Cole Tab, and you also have Champ Hampton who can maybe come in reserve as well. So there certainly is a very deep running back core. You don't necessarily like to have that depth tested, right? Because certainly, if injuries can certainly wipe out entire rooms quick, fast, and in a hurry. So, it'll be intriguing. And look, you guys know BYU's defense, one of the best, one of the most active, certainly west of the Mississippi, maybe one of the best linebacking groups in the entire country. So that's going to be a tough nut to crack. And I'm not exactly sure if Stanford is going to be best served by, obviously, ball control is nice, but first and 10, if you're going to hand it off on first and 10, it better not necessarily result in 2nd and 7, right? It needs to result in 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, get into 2nd and manageable, stay in more manageable situations there. So, the running game is going to be key, but really it's really going to depend on whether Stanford finds a passing game or not, if they can really make strides against a tough BYU defense.
You speak of that new offensive line, and you got a bunch of transfers, which is unusual because I think last year Stanford only took 4. This year they took 17 transfers, and you've got, as I say, transfers along the offensive line. How do they handle the transfers there? Because a lot of programs bring in way more than Stanford does.
Well, obviously the big thing here with Stanford is that it's the admissions office, and Stanford has some of the most stringent admissions requirements in the country, and by and large, those are not going to change because that kind of helps make Stanford the university that it is. Now, that being said, the big thing wasn't necessarily, lessening the standards, dropping the standards down to be able to be able to bring in more transfers. That wasn't the problem. The standards were not the problem. The issue was the process. And the Stanford admissions office was probably a little bit slow in coming around to being willing to streamline their process a little bit, speed up their process a little bit, instead of saying, hey, look, we only make all of our decisions in the spring and maybe some early entry kids, and that's it. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily work in this day and age on an athletic timeline, because that means you can't bring in guys, after the spring transfer portal window was done. You can't bring in guys in June and in other parts of the year as well. So it wasn't necessarily the standards, it was the process. And there has been progress made on that front. New president for Stanford came into office a year ago. He certainly has been much more embracing of what athletics can do and the positive things that it can bring to a university's ecosystem. He was behind bringing on Andrew Luck as the general manager, and Andrew's done a lot of hard work in trying to restore the program, restore awareness of the program, get the word out about the program, and just kind of re-energize and restoke the fan base here a little bit. So, really, there are so many different things that go into having a successful program, right? And a lot of those things don't just happen in the football office itself. You need the support from other facets of the university as well. And at Stanford, that includes the university leadership, and it also includes the admissions office, because they have a lot of sway in how things work on that campus. So now with both of those areas involved, it's been a little bit more, it's been a bit easier to get the transfers involved. 17 transfers in. They only brought 13 transfers in total from 2020 to 2024. So that's big-time progress in that area.
At the last Pac-12 Media Day, I remember Stanford and Cal players both echoing we're not really in NIL here. Getting a degree from these schools and knowing these alumni, that's the real prize. And I get it. There is real value in those degrees and real value in knowing the alumni. But players still want cash in the here and now. Is that changing?
That appears to be changing just a bit. Now, I'm not quite privy to all of those, to that side of things. But it is how you're going to have to compete in this day and age, right? It is what it is. And whether it goes against what you've stood for, perhaps in some respects, over the past few decades or whatever, in this day and age with the ever-changing landscape of college sports, if you want to play, more often than not, you're going to have to pay. Now, whether you bring a student athlete in here who does recognize and does realize the value of a Stanford degree, and maybe that overtakes every other consideration, then hey, that's great. How many of those guys are out there? How many of those guys are top-notch, football players and can maybe turn around the program and have an impact right away? I don't know, but it certainly is going to be something intriguing to watch and see, and see. I'm not sure if this is something that's going to necessarily turn around, overnight, right away. We just talked about how slow the admissions office was to turn around, but certainly maybe it's a bit easier to turn that around a bit more quickly. But that might be a bit of a process. We'll see.
We see that BYU plays Portland State and puts 69 on them, and they start Bachmeier, the freshman who spent the spring practice up there with Stanford and then takes off, and he doesn't play the second half. And it's like, okay, well, we had to get through this. The second game, you look at particularly what we're looking for BYU's offense. I think this is going to be a great test because Stanford's defense is pretty good. I think they're loaded at linebacker, and Matt Rose is a really good player. But you look at throughout the three levels of the defense, a lot of experience, a lot of fifth-year guys, a lot of seniors, particularly up front. Just about everybody on the depth chart is somebody with experience. So I think it'll be a real good test for BYU. Certainly a far more accurate test to get a better idea of who they are rather than what we had about what we saw last week. Just explain to us what you think of Stanford's defense, because it looks like they're pretty good.
Yeah, boy, I hope it's a more accurate test for BYU's offense this time around than certainly it was last week. I mean, I saw that final score, And I was like, okay, well, that was a bit worse than I thought it would be, and I'm not exactly sure how much I'm going to learn. And when I go back and try to piece together some things here, but I think you're right, and I alluded to a bit earlier in this chat. Certainly, a lot fewer question marks on the defensive side of the ball for Stanford than there have been and still are on the offensive side. And really talking to folks, inside the program during training camp, during fall camp. And they say, look, defensive line is probably one of the strongest units on the entire team. Defensive line and tight end were the two that they signaled out in particular. And, yeah, the case can be made. I mean, the first defensive snap of the game for Stanford against Hawaii, Clay Patterson, seventh-year player, bowls in, just bull rushes up the middle, blows up the quarterback in the end zone, and Wilfredo Ibar, an edge rusher, recovers it in the end zone for a score. And you're thinking, man, one snap in, man, is the tree fence back? Is this the 76 Steelers? Man, this is going to be awesome. But Patterson, veteran guy, unfortunately, he made an unfortunate dancing with the stars moment that ended up being one of the critical plays of that game, 15 yards and an extended Hawaii drive that they later turned in to go-ahead points at the half. But Patterson, a veteran guy coming off of injuries last year, Zach Rao, Anthony Franklin, Zach Bucky, who had 3 sacks against Cal, Omar Staples, Braden Marceau, Oleinka. That's a pretty stout unit up front. Active linebackers: Matt Rose with 13 tackles against Hawaii. Teveru Tafiti, who just blew up as the season went along last year as an outside rusher with Ernest Cooper and Wilfredo Ibar in reserve. And, the secondary was shorthanded last week. Colin Wright, Stanford's best corner, did not play, was a bit dinged up during camp. I'd imagine he'll be back against BYU. Scotty Edwards, of course, the Utah, the Beehive State product, coming back home. His uncle played at BYU. All his family played at a bunch of BYU fans. Scotty even said, hey, look, back when I was a kid going to Provo, I've rushed the field at LaVelle Edwards Stadium a few times. He was unable to go. But also in reserve, you have Brandon Nicholson and Cam Richardson, a couple of freshmen who were thrown into the fire. Trial by fire and by injury for last year. The defensive back room was just decimated for much of last year, but they gained valuable experience. Mitch Lieber, Jay Green. So yeah, experience from front to back, and they're going to be counted on and maybe leaned upon maybe a bit more than I thought they might be until Stanford discovers a passing game. So we'll see what the Stanford defense can do to dent BYU and go up against a familiar quarterback one. They had to defend that guy in spring practice a few times.
Troy, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the short plane flight, old school style, before you get back to, the new deal.
We might not even get a full meal on the plane this time. Man, I'm kind of bummed, but that's all right. Thanks a bunch. Really appreciate it. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane, and go Stanford.
Troy Clardy, Stanford Cardinal play-by-play broadcaster, joining us here on The Zone. DJ and PK, when we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
Tune in Thursday for your chance to win tickets to Corn Bellies in Spanish Fork. Don't miss the Sunflower Fest and Pumpkin Fest going on now through November 1st. Right now, enjoy more than 1 million flowers while they're still in bloom. Listen all day Thursday for your chance to win. Time for your feedback. How come BYU and Utah, it's so different? Utah's getting all the love, but what about BYU? Cheese fries, huge Ute fan. BYU should have manned up and scheduled a real P2 opponent like Utah. What happens if Stanford plays UCLA, PK?
If Stanford
plays UCLA, these are their P2 opponent, non-conference. I mean, Stanford's not a P2. It'd be Power 4. I mean, Stanford's in the ACC. But nonetheless, wouldn't there be about 10 to 15,000 fans there for a...
Oh, is that what you're talking about? They're talking about results. I was thinking about it.
I was just thinking, who's the better opponent? I mean, I think they're both going to end up being...
Oh, between those two?
They're both going to have losing records. Neither one's going to be bowl eligible.
I would say Stanford. I think they've got a legitimate defense, and they're experienced as all get out. They are upperclassmen, graduates, all that stuff. So I would give the slight nod to Stanford. I think as far as what we're looking for from BYU's offense, this is a decent test against Stanford's defense. I think Stanford's defense is decent. They've got a few players there, yeah. So I'm
you mentioned Rose at linebacker,
yeah.
And he was their leading tackler against Hawaii. Had a dozen, I think, solo tackles.
Yeah.
Nobody else had more than 5.
And he's upperclassman.
Right, but he didn't have a lot of stats his sophomore and junior year, but getting his chance now and at least made the most of it week 1. Well, we got BYU fans who are confident, almost highly ranked at True Blue BYU 1984. You'll see. Just wait.
No.
Gif of a...
You about to find out.
There it is. No linking verbs, please.
The linking verb is the most disrespected and underutilized punctuation in the English language.
U State Iceman, Jack. If BYU don't do well, you got another nickname off of PK's nickname. Instead of the grizzly bear, he'll be the teddy bear.
Okay. Yeah. But, you don't normally give nicknames in a negative way.
Not usually. Every once in a while, your guy Bill Parcells is good at it.
Yeah, but I never liked Parcells.
That's not true. You loved him. You remember the best negative nickname I can remember was there was a cornerback, Elvis Patterson, and he called him Toast because he got burned so often.
Yeah.
Elvis Toast Patterson, and it stuck.
Sure. I don't believe in motivation by negativity.
Since when?
Right now.
Okay. Petty Ute fan. Everyone outside of Provo knows last year was a fluke for both teams. That's why Utah's getting national respect and BYU isn't getting any.
Was last year a fluke?
Well, I believe if I were talking to a BYU coach, they might say something like, well, it was the 3rd double-digit win season in the last 5 years. How many do you want to dismiss?
Yeah.
The first one was, well, it was the pandemic. It was a mostly G5 schedule. And then the second one, well, the Pac-12 was down. They cleaned up on a bunch of power teams, mostly Pac-12 teams.
BYU, but...
The third one, they're in the Big 12.
Yeah, they had a lot of nice wins.
At some point, you just got to it's what you did with Gonzaga basketball and Boise State football. At some point, I get the league isn't that good, but if you're going to win that much, that often, and when you get your chance on the big stage, if you come through a few times, at some point you just got to tip your cap for the Sweet 16s or the Fiesta Bowl wins or whatever it is. Multiple double-digit win seasons.
Yeah, that's what made the losses so excruciting.
There was so much winning.
Yeah.
So much winning and such high hopes.
Right.
And their losses came late, so they were more painful.
Well, yeah. Exactly. If they were, 8-4, 7-5, you lost those games.
It happens.
One possession.
And that's kind of how Ute fans reacted to their season 2 years ago when Barnes was the quarterback and they went 8-5, 8-4 with a bowl loss to Northwestern for the 5th loss.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, it was a backup quarterback. It was pretty solid, and it happens.
Yeah, and the bowl loss was a backup to a backup
to a backup, right. And they had, they beat the bad teams. They were able to grind out wins and win in dramatic fashion against some decent teams. But when they played the really highly ranked teams, it wasn't happening. There was no woulda, coulda, shoulda. They were beat.
Right.
All right, DJ PK, we're out of time. Jake and Ben are next.